all the money from my books, and even some extra. It's called budgeting, Dad. Making a budget is the most important thing you can do to track your money. It keeps a record of how much you make, how much you spend, where you spend it, and most importantly, how much you can save. Write down all your income, write down all your expenses, see where you can cut down and allot more money to more important things, like saving.
The time by Carrie Chris is 6 p.m. Time for CBX Business News. The Business News Headlines is brought to you by CBX Wealth Management, making more possible.
A multi-billion-dollar assessment, the Caribbean's green framework, and Japan's markets under pressure. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Thursday, November 20, 2025. I'm Rochelle Moncrief. Thanks for joining us. Coming up in the newscast locally, the World Bank's preliminary assessment puts Hurricane Melissa's damage at nearly $9 billion. On the regional front, the Caribbean Development Bank debuts its sustainable finance framework with a 100 million Swiss franc bond. And over on the global stage, Japan's bond yields surge to multi-decade highs as the yen sinks to a 10-month low. Stay tuned as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
Wealth is not simply counted in dollars or cents, but in the time we spend with love, in love, giving love. Wealth is not simply a means to an end. It is the means to live out loud. Wealth is more than money. It's about family, the memories you create, the legacy you leave behind, and your ability to enjoy life in the moment. It's also about seeing the QMAX possibilities and seizing investment opportunities to achieve the future you want and deserve. Which is why QMAX Wealth will focus on your investments so you can experience more. Because true wealth is truly more. To start investing today, call 876-926-7767.
The local news is brought to you by Derriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments.
Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with new World Bank estimates post-Hurricane Melissa. Jamaica's economic landscape has shifted dramatically, with new estimates showing that Hurricane Melissa has inflicted $8.8 billion in physical damage, the largest reconstruction bill the country has ever faced. The figures come from a rapid impact evaluation carried out by the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, and ECLAC, offering the first detailed financial picture of the storm's fallout. Speaking at a post-hurricane press briefing on Wednesday, World Bank's country director for Caribbean countries, Lilia Barunchik, says the assessment places the damage at 41% of Jamaica's GDP.
The total cost of damage is estimated at $8.8 billion, which is 41% of the gross domestic product of Jamaica in 2024. As I said, this number assumes only physical damage. The economic damage will, of course, be also large, and often from our experience, it's even larger than the physical damage. But this will be estimated later when the dollar assessment is completed.
She says the western end of the island suffered a disproportionate hit, accounting for almost US $6 billion in losses.
Parishes of St. Elizabeth, St. James, Westmoreland experienced the worst damage, and these three parishes account for a total of $5.5 billion US, or 63% of the country's total damage. This slide shows total damages by parish for four categories that I mentioned before: residential buildings, non-residential buildings, infrastructure, and agriculture. I would like to note that the breakdown by parish should be taken as indicative, and this will be verified in the future estimates.
Meanwhile, another US $1.8 billion in damages was recorded across commercial properties.
The second category is non-residential buildings and their contents damage. It accounts for 20% of the total damage, equal to $1.8 billion US. And this includes commercial, industrial, tourism, public buildings, and non-residential qualified as mixed-use buildings and their contents.
That was the World Bank's country director for Caribbean countries, Lilia Baroun-Sheikh. Jamaica is overhauling its reconstruction framework with the launch of the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, NRRA, a new statutory body designed to fast-track the country's largest rebuilding effort. Speaking to the nation on Wednesday, Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness says the NRRA will coordinate the full scope of post-Melissa works.
The government will therefore establish the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, NARA, a statutory body with special powers to lead, coordinate, fast-track, and oversee national reconstruction, reporting directly to the Office of the Prime Minister. The NARA will focus on building back better, safer homes, climate-resilient infrastructure, better land use planning, relocation from high-risk zones, and taking the opportunity to introduce new industries and new businesses to areas that previously had no economic base.
Holness says the NRRA will operate on a 5-year mandate with US $1.15 billion in immediately accessible funds.
The authority's administrative expenditure will be financed from the national budget, as other agencies are. However, recovery and reconstruction activities will be financed initially from the National Natural Disaster Recovery Fund, the NNDRF. The NNDRF was set up to receive the proceeds of Jamaica's disaster risk instruments, including Jamaica's catastrophe bond, policies with the Caribbean Catastrophe Reinsurance Facilities, CRIF, and various credit contingent claims with the IDB and the World Bank. These amounts will total approximately $650 million US.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Holness has also signaled that some of the government's big-ticket manifesto promises may be pushed back as Jamaica confronts the massive fiscal shock of Hurricane Melissa. Responding to questions about whether measures such as student loan forgiveness, a higher minimum wage, and GCT adjustments will be delayed, Holness says the government intends to keep its manifesto commitments, but may need to reprioritize as recovery spending takes precedence.
As much as possible, we are going to try to keep our commitments from the manifesto. As I said before, we don't want to slow down the development of Jamaica as we pursue the recovery and reconstruction. There are going to be, however, fiscal choices, meaning, do I spend the limited resources now on X, or do I spend it on Y? So the general rule would be, if spending on the election promise is not something that is going to yield immediately greater results than spending it on the recovery or on the reconstruction, then we would go for what yields the greater overall results.
That was Prime Minister of Jamaica, Dr. Andrew Holness. In other news, Mega Mart has confirmed it will permanently close its Montego Bay flagship after Hurricane Melissa caused more than $1 billion in damage, wiping out the 75,000 square foot Catherine Hall store. Founder and CEO Ghassan Azan Jr. says the losses include destroyed inventory, ruined electrical systems, severe building damage, and equipment that must be custom ordered. He also warned of a major revenue hit, noting Catherine Hall was the company's second best performing location. During the storm, floodwaters surged 7 to 8 feet inside the building after 3 major rivers overflowed, tearing through the community and filling the store with mud and debris. Chief Operating Officer Sachin Gupte says rebuilding the site would be near impossible, comparing it to constructing a brand new supermarket. The permanent shutdown leaves 165 employees displaced. Megamart is paying staff through the end of November and offering medical checks, supplies, and transfers to other branches in Kingston, Portmore, and Mandeville. Several supermarkets in St. James have also reached out to hire affected workers. We go now to updates from the Bank of Jamaica on how the currency markets traded today. In Thursday's currency trading session, the US dollar is selling for $160.81, the Canadian for $114.17, the pound sterling for $210.51, while the going rate for the euro is $188.38. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities. In Thursday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 109 stocks, of which 43 advanced, 50 declined, and 16 traded firm. Leading the winners are Cygnus Credit Investments 10.50% preference shares due 2025 Class C, Epley Limited, Medical Disposables and Supplies, and Guardian Holdings. While leading the losers are Consolidated Bakeries Jamaica, Access Financial Services, Iron Rock Insurance Company, and Honeybun 1982. The main index advanced by 937.05 points, or 0.30%, to close at 313,888.38 points. The junior market index declined by 34.11 points, or 1.01%, to close at 3,347.73 points.
And it's time for Market Education Feature, brought to you by Carrie Chris, Regional Ratings, Global Standard.
In today's Market Education Feature, we're defining the term white collar. White collar refers to employees who typically work in office-based, professional, or administrative roles rather than performing physical labor. Traditionally, these positions were associated with higher wages, formal attire like suits and ties, and strong educational backgrounds. Today, the line is less rigid, but white-collar jobs remain dominant in many economies. Common examples include managers, lawyers, accountants, consultants, finance professionals, insurance specialists, and computer programmers.
The Market Education Feature was brought to you by Carrie Chris, Regional Ratings, Global Standards.
And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next.
The local news is brought to you by Darriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses. And Pulse Investments.
I'm trading stocks to achieve my financial goals.
I'm also trading stocks to achieve my financial goals.
Start a conversation with the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Check jamstockx.com for information and a list of registered stockbrokers. You can also call the Jamaica Stock Exchange at 876-967-3271 for information on how to begin. I am achieving my financial goals.
I'm achieving my financial goals.
Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. The Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, has broken new ground on global markets, raising 100 million Swiss francs in its first ever bond issued under a newly launched sustainable finance framework. The 5-year note, priced at a 0.59% fixed rate, sold out in just 90 minutes and has a credit rating that has positioned the bank as one of the most financially secure and reliable borrowers in the world. Demand was so solid that the bank priced at the top of its initial range, with treasuries taking 62% of the allocation, followed by asset managers, private banks, pension funds, and insurers. CDB says the sustainable finance framework will channel all proceeds into projects that build climate resilience, renewable energy systems, water security, food security, education, and support for small and medium-sized enterprises across its borrowing member countries. The government of Guyana has welcomed a landmark High Court ruling that reaffirms the Guyana Revenue Authority's power to conduct post-clearance audits, a decision officials say protects billions in state revenue and restores certainty to the country's customs framework. Speaking earlier today, President Dr. Irfan Ali says this ruling removes uncertainty, safeguards public finances, and protects legitimate importers who depend on an efficient rules-based customs system.
I am pleased and the government welcomes the recent and highly consequential decision delivered on the 17th of November 2025 by Madam Justice Roxanne George in the matter of Janjen Yu and Guyana Revenue Authority. Justice George's ruling brings clarity to an area of significant public importance. The authority of the Guyana Revenue Authority to conduct post-clearance assessments of imported consignments. Her judgment is compelling, meticulously reasoned, intellectually rigorous, and firmly rooted.
That was President of Guyana, Dr. Irfan Ali. In other news, Bermuda has cleared a key hurdle in the long-delayed U.S. $1.4 billion Fairmont Southampton revival, finalizing the Special Development Order SDO that will govern construction and unlock the next phase of investment for the island's biggest hospitality project. Minister for the Cabinet Office and Digital Innovation, Diallo Rabane, stressed that the SDO does not grant new approvals, but formalizes and tightens the 2023 framework.
The SDO that we are releasing now is not a new approval. It is the same draft SDO that was discussed and agreed upon in 2023, but now refined and finalized. So the project can move forward with greater certainty. The goal remains the same: to bring the hotel back, to create jobs for Bermudians, to strengthen our tourism product, and to do so while safeguarding the character of the land and the surrounding community.
That was Minister for Cabinet Office and Digital Innovation, Diallo Rabane. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 19 securities, of which 5 advanced, 8 declined, and 6 traded firm. Today's winners are National Enterprises, Prestige Holdings, Unilever Caribbean, and Ansa McCall, while leading the losers are JMMB Group, National Flour Mills, First Citizens Group Financial Holdings, and NCB Financial Group. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All-TNT Index advanced by 3.46 points to close at 1,352.49. The Composite Index advanced by 1.34 points to close at 938.18. The Cross-Listed Index declined by 0.13 points to close at 69.25. The SME Index remained at 96.30. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up next.
Serious about building Jamaica? Build with solid PVC pipes and conduits, manufactured in Jamaica by Phosphate, made to the highest standard. Solid PVC pipes and conduits are made in Jamaica by Jamaicans for Jamaicans. Available at hardware stores across the island. Take some solid advice, support our economy, and build well. Buy solid PVC pipes. Next time, ask for solid brand PVC pipes and conduits. Call our distributors or Phosphate at 876-937-5099.
In international news, investors across Japan are dumping the yen and long-term government bonds, a decision that is driving borrowing costs to record highs. 30 and 40-year yields have surged, and the benchmark 10-year has shot above 1.8%, a 17-year peak. This comes ahead of Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi's massive stimulus package, the largest since COVID-19, funded through Japan's 1 quadrillion yen debt market. With the Bank of Japan no longer providing a permanent bid for bonds, markets are comparing the situation to the UK's Liz Truss crisis in 2022. The yen has now fallen 7 straight weeks, hitting just over 157 yen to the dollar, even after an emergency meeting between the central bank and the finance ministry. And we stay with policy pressures, but shift to the United States, where new employment data is adding its own complications. The U.S. labor market showed mixed signals in September. Payrolls rose 119,000 more than expected, but still too slow to keep up with a surge of new job seekers. The unemployment rate climbed to 4.4%, the highest in 4 years. Revised data confirmed that employers cut jobs in August, reinforcing a slowdown shaped by import tariffs, weaker hiring conditions, and growing integration of artificial intelligence in some roles. Economists are split on whether the Fed should cut rates next month. Stronger than expected hiring argues for patience, but the rise in unemployment strengthens the case for easing. Healthcare, leisure, and hospitality drove hiring, while transport, warehousing, and manufacturing continued to lose ground. from economic pressure to legal pressure. Two major global banks are now facing fresh scrutiny from Washington. JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank have been ordered to hand over financial records linked to Jeffrey Epstein after the House Oversight Committee issued subpoenas in a widening congressional investigation. The order comes as President Donald Trump signed a new law requiring the U.S. Justice Department to release its full Epstein files. Both banks previously settled civil suits brought by Epstein's victims, Deutsche Bank for US $75 million and JP Morgan for $290 million US. But lawmakers now want deeper insight into what the institutions knew and how the risks were managed when Epstein was a client. And finally, we turn to corporate America, where another household name is under legal fire from shareholders. Starbucks will face a shareholder lawsuit accusing it of misleading investors by concealing sharp sales declines in the US and China, its two largest markets. A federal judge ruled that investors can attempt to prove the company overstated the success of its reinvention plan in January 2024, despite falling traffic and operational strain. The stock plunged 16% last May after the company revealed a 4.4% drop in same-store sales, wiping out US $16 billion in value. Claims against former CEO Laxman Narasimhan will proceed. While others were dismissed, Starbucks says its plan to continue defending the plans. Right. Claims against Laxman Narasimhan. Ready? Claims against former CEO Laxman Narasimhan will proceed, while others were dismissed. Starbucks says it plans to continue defending the case. New CEO Brian Niccol has since rolled out a Back to Starbucks turnaround program with early signs of sales improvement. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of the break.
So much book you need for high school?
I'll show you how to make sure you have all the money for my books and even some extra. It's called budgeting, Dad. Making a budget is the most important thing you can do to track your money. It keeps a record of how much you make, how much you spend, where you spend it, and most importantly, how much you can save. Write down all your income, write down all your expenses, see where you can cut down and allot more money to more important things, like saving.
And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, World Bank's preliminary assessment puts Melissa's damages at almost US $9 billion. Regionally, CDB debuts sustainable finance framework with 100 million Swiss franc bond. And internationally, Japan's bond yields surge to multi-decade highs as yen sinks to a 10-month low. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rochelle Moncrief. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.